Malik was only 17, but his heart carried dreams bigger than his age. It was his first time flying alone. He had packed his little suitcase 3 days early and checked the flight details at least 10 times. The ticket said he was flying from Atlanta to London, and on the other side of the world, his mother was waiting with open arms. She worked overseas, and he hadn't seen her in nearly 2 years. Malik wore his best jeans, a clean white shirt, and the sneakers his mom sent him last Christmas. He looked neat, respectful, and nervous. As he walked through the airport, holding his passport tight, he kept whispering to himself, "You're going to see Mom. You got this." He found his gate and waited quietly. People passed by him. Some smiled, some didn't. That didn't bother Malik. He was used to being invisible. He just wanted to get on the plane, watch the clouds, and finally hug the woman who had worked so hard to give him a better life. Boarding the plane. When they called his boarding group, Malik stood up quickly, checked his seat number -22A, and walked toward the gate with his head held high. He handed over his ticket. The flight attendant at the gate scanned it and gave him a nod. No words, just a quick look up and down. Malik noticed it, but ignored it. He stepped onto the plane, amazed by the rows of seats, the lights, the quiet hum of the engines. He found 22A by the window and sat down. His hands were shaking a little, but his eyes sparkled. This was his moment. An older woman soon joined him in the middle seat. She looked kind. She smiled at him and said, "First time flying?" Malik nodded. "Yes, Mom. Going to see my mom." She smiled warmly. "Well, you're doing just fine." They chatted a little more. She told him her name was Mrs. Carter, and she was visiting her grandkids. She said Malik reminded her of her own grandson. The first look. As the plane filled up, a tall flight attendant walked down the aisle. She had sharp eyes and a cold face. When she passed Malik's row, she looked at him strangely. Malik gave a small smile. She didn't smile back. Instead, she paused, looked again at Malik, then leaned over and asked, "Can I see your boarding pass again?" Malik blinked, confused. Sure." He pulled it out and showed it to her. She stared at it, then at him, as if something didn't add up. "This is for 22A, she said flatly. "Yes, that's where I'm sitting," Malik replied softly. She gave a small nod, turned around, and walked away. But before she left the row, she whispered something to another flight attendant, pointing toward Malik. Mrs. Carter noticed. She frowned. "That was strange," she said. Malik tried to brush it off. Maybe she just needed to double-check. But in his heart, a quiet discomfort began to grow. Something feels off. The safety video started. The plane rolled back. Malik looked out the window as the engines roared to life. He whispered, "Let's go." But before the plane took off, the same flight attendant returned. This time, she leaned into Malik's row again. "I'm going to have to ask you not to touch anything around you unless instructed," she said in a firm voice. Malik was stunned. I wasn't doing anything." She cut him off. "Just follow the rules, please." Mrs. Carter's face turned serious. "Excuse me, ma'am, he hasn't done anything wrong." The attendant gave her a tight smile. "I'll handle it, ma'am." She walked away again. Now, Malik's hands were cold. He looked down at his lap, unsure what he had done. Mrs. Carter leaned closer. "You're fine, sweetie. Don't let her get to you." But Malik could feel eyes now. Other passengers glancing over, wondering, whispering. The strange announcement. The plane finally took off. For a while, things were calm. Malik stared out at the clouds, trying to hold on to the joy that brought him here. But inside, he felt small, nervous, like something bad was coming. Then, 20 minutes into the flight, the pilot made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been informed of a minor situation. We ask for your patience while we look into it." That was it. No details. Just a situation. Malik looked at Mrs. Carter. You think it's about me? She looked worried now. I don't know, honey, but stay calm. Then a voice came from behind. Excuse me, young man. May I speak with you for a second? Malik turned around slowly. A man in a suit was standing there. Not a flight attendant, not a passenger, but someone with a serious face and a badge. Malik turned slowly in his seat. The man behind him looked serious, calm, and in control. He wore a dark blue blazer with a silver badge clipped near his chest. I'm Officer Grant, he said in a low voice. Federal Air Marshal on this flight. Mind stepping into the galley with me for a moment? Malik's heart dropped. He looked at Mrs. Carter in panic. She gently touched his hand and said, Go with him, sweetheart. It's okay. Just stay calm. Malik nodded, stood up carefully, and followed the man down the narrow aisle. Passengers watched. Some whispered. A few looked annoyed, others curious. Malik could feel their stares crawling on his back like cold fingers. The galley area at the back of the plane was small and noisy. Officer Grant motioned for Malik to stand against the wall. Son, he said, the crew has received a complaint. A flight attendant says you were acting suspicious and made her feel uncomfortable. Malik's eyes widened. I didn't do anything, sir. I was just sitting in my seat, talking to the lady next to me. She claims you were being rude, that you were fidgeting and looking around too much. Malik's voice cracked. I was just nervous. It's my first flight alone. The officer studied him for a moment. I can see that. You don't look like trouble, he said, but I still have to follow procedure. Malik's throat tightened. Am I in trouble? Officer Grant shook his head slowly. Not yet, but I'm going to ask around. Just stay quiet, stay respectful, and sit tight. Malik nodded, his face pale. As he walked back to his seat, the whispers grew louder. Passengers leaned toward the aisle to watch him. He could hear someone say, What did he do? Another voice responded, Not sure, but something happened. Back in seat 22A. Mrs. Carter welcomed Malik back with a soft smile. What did he say? She asked. They said I made the flight attendant uncomfortable, Malik said quietly. Mrs. Carter's eyebrows shot up. Uncomfortable. For sitting and breathing. Malik gave a sad shrug. I guess. Mrs. Carter sat up straighter and pressed the call button above their seats. A different flight attendant came by. Yes, Mom. I want to speak to the captain, she said firmly. This young man is being treated unfairly, and I want it recorded that I've seen nothing wrong with his behavior. The flight attendant looked nervous. Ma'am, we'll handle it. No, she interrupted. You're not handling it. You're targeting a child who's done nothing wrong. The flight attendant walked away quickly, unsure what to say. More passengers speak up. From 2 rows behind, a woman stood up. I saw it too, she said aloud. The boy's been sitting quietly the whole time. This is wrong. Another man near the window added, Yeah, I've seen worse behavior from kids watching cartoons. Whispers began turning into voices. People were uncomfortable now, but not because of Malik. They were uncomfortable with how he was being treated. The energy on the plane started shifting. And then something unexpected happened. An apology, or another threat. The same flight attendant who had started it all came back. Her smile was fake. Her tone was cold. Mr. Malik, she said loudly, I just want to say that if you feel uncomfortable, you can request to change seats. Malik blinked in confusion. Why would I need to move? She leaned in, lowering her voice. Because you're causing a scene. And I'm trying to help you avoid more trouble. Mrs. Carter stood up, full of fire now. No, you caused the scene. And we're not moving. Several passengers clapped softly. The flight attendant looked shocked. She turned and walked away, red-faced. The air marshal returns. Officer Grant came back minutes later. This time, he had a notebook and a serious look. I've spoken to multiple passengers, he said to Malik. No one saw you do anything wrong. In fact, they said you were polite and quiet. Malik exhaled slowly. Thank you, sir. But Officer Grant wasn't done. He turned to Mrs. Carter. Ma'am, would you be willing to provide a written statement when we land? Gladly, she said. The air marshal nodded. Good, because what's happening here isn't okay. The cabin grows tense. The flight continued, but the atmosphere had changed. People kept looking at Malik, but now with support in their eyes. One passenger offered him a juice box. A little girl across the aisle smiled and waved. Even the captain came over once and gently told him, "We're aware of the situation. Just hang in there, son." But Malik couldn't relax. Something inside told him this wasn't over. And he was right. Because just before landing, Officer Grant received a message on his radio. He leaned down and whispered to Malik, "Son, there's someone waiting at the gate for you. Someone important." As the plane started its descent, Malik sat frozen in his seat. The words from Officer Grant kept playing in his head. There's someone important waiting for you at the gate. Malik didn't know if that meant something good or something bad. All he knew was that his heart was pounding. His first flight had turned into a nightmare. He had done nothing wrong, yet somehow he had become the center of it all. Mrs. Carter placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone, sweet boy," she whispered. "I'm with you till the end." Malik nodded but said nothing. He didn't trust his voice. He just stared out the window at the tiny buildings growing bigger and closer. One last power play. The plane touched down with a bump. Passengers clapped lightly. Some cheered. But Malik didn't celebrate. His hands were cold. His throat was tight. As the plane taxied to the gate, the flight attendant who had caused the trouble walked down the aisle one last time. She paused at Malik's row, looked down at him with a forced smile, and said, "I hope next time you remember how to behave on a flight." Malik didn't respond, but Mrs. Carter stood up. "Say another word," she said coldly, "and I will raise my voice so loud this whole cabin will know what you really did." The flight attendant blinked in shock and walked away without another word. Passengers nearby nodded to Mrs. Carter in support. Some even clapped quietly. The gate surprise. When the doors opened, everyone began to leave. Malik stood up slowly. Mrs. Carter walked beside him like a protector. As they stepped into the jet bridge, Officer Grant joined them. "There he is," he said softly, pointing toward the terminal. Malik looked ahead, and his eyes widened. Standing by the glass wall were two men in dark suits, wearing sunglasses and earpieces. Beside them stood a third man, tall, calm, and wearing a military officer's uniform. The officer's eyes locked onto Malik. Then he smiled. Malik blinked. "Dad." The room goes silent. The passengers who had been watching Malik stepped into the terminal and immediately noticed the men waiting. Whispers broke out again. "Who are they? Are those government agents? Wait, is that boy important?" One of the suited men stepped forward and said, "Are you Malik Thompson?" Malik nodded slowly. "This man is your father." Malik nodded again. "Yes, sir." The man turned to the flight crew, who had just exited the plane. His voice became cold. "You made a report accusing this young man of suspicious behavior. We need to know what evidence you had." The flight attendant who had started it all stepped forward, nervous but still proud. "I just had a feeling," she said. "He was acting strange, fidgety, nervous. I followed my instinct." The officer in uniform stepped forward now. His voice was calm but deadly serious. "Let me introduce myself," he said. "Colonel David Thompson, U.S. Army, Intelligence Division." He held up his ID badge. "I specialize in identifying actual threats, and let me make one thing clear. My son is not one of them." The tables turned. The colonel's words cut through the air like thunder. Everyone nearby stopped to listen. Some pulled out their phones. Cameras started recording. Colonel Thompson continued, What this crew did today wasn't security protocol. It was profiling. He turned to the airline manager, who had just arrived, and added, "Your crew accused a respectful, calm teenager of being a threat, based on nothing but skin and nerves." The flight attendant opened her mouth to speak, but the air marshal cut her off. "Don't," Officer Grant said firmly. "I witnessed everything. He did nothing wrong, and several passengers back it up." Now the airline manager looked pale. I didn't know. I'm so sorry." But it was too late. The final blow. Colonel Thompson walked over to Malik and put a hand on his shoulder. "I told your mom I'd meet you here," he said. "Didn't expect it to turn into this." Malik finally smiled. "Just a little." "Me neither." The airline manager stepped forward again. "Sir, we'll handle this internally. We take full." "No," the colonel interrupted. "You don't get to hide this in paperwork. This is going public." He turned to the passengers still standing nearby, many of them recording. "Let the world see what really happened. Let people know that even a kid flying to see his mom has to fight to prove he belongs here." Then he looked back at the airline staff. "And let me make one more thing clear. This flight attendant will never do this to another black child again." The crowd reacts. Cheers broke out from the passengers. One man shouted, "That's right." A woman added, "It's about time someone said it." Even strangers who didn't know Malik were now standing up for him. The flight attendant lowered her eyes and quietly slipped away. Her voice, her power, and her position gone. A hug that meant everything. Colonel Thompson turned to Malik. "You okay, son?" Malik nodded. "Now I am." Then came the moment he'd waited for all this time. His father pulled him into a tight hug, holding him like a man who almost lost something precious. Mrs. Carter wiped away a tear nearby. "You've raised a fine young man," she said. "I know," the colonel replied, "and the world's going to see it." The videos started spreading before Malik and his father even left the airport. One woman uploaded a clip with the caption, "Flight attendant accuses teen for no reason." His dad's response, powerful. Within hours, it had thousands of shares. People didn't just watch it. They felt it. They saw a quiet, respectful black teenager wrongly accused. They saw a flight attendant twisting facts. And they saw a calm, powerful man, a military officer, defend his son with pride and strength. That video hit a nerve. And the internet wasn't going to stay quiet. The world reacts. In cities across the country, people began to talk. "Did you see the video of the kid on the plane? That flight attendant picked the wrong family. I wish more parents stood up like that." On Twitter, a hashtag began trending. #JusticeForMalik. Influencers, celebrities, even civil rights leaders started speaking out. One tweet said, "That boy stayed respectful. That man stayed calm." And the truth still hit like thunder. But for Malik, none of this felt real yet. A quiet ride home. Malik sat beside his father in the black SUV, staring out the window. He was quiet. His father, Colonel Thompson, kept glancing at him. "You did good back there," the colonel said. "You kept your cool." Malik nodded slowly. "I just didn't want to cry," he whispered. The colonel reached out and gently squeezed his son's shoulder. "It's okay if you did," he said. "It's not weakness, it's strength." Malik finally looked over. "Why did she choose me, Dad?" "I was just sitting there." The colonel sighed. "Sometimes, son, people don't see you. They see their fears, or their hate, or their ignorance. But that's not your fault. Ever." The school learns the truth. The next day, Malik's school principal called him. "Malik, I just want you to know, we saw the news. We're proud of you." Some teachers reached out too. One emailed, "We always knew you were special, Malik. But now, the world sees it too." But not everyone was kind. Some students sent rude messages. One wrote, "Bet you love the attention, huh? Drama King. Malik showed the message to his dad. His dad didn't get angry. He just said, "Some people stay small, even when the truth is big. But you're growing." The airline makes a move. After 2 days of silence, the airline finally released a statement. "We are aware of the incident involving Malik Thompson and a flight crew member. The behavior shown does not reflect our values. The employee has been terminated. We are reviewing all protocols to prevent similar events." It wasn't enough for some, but for others, it was a win. Still, Malik wasn't looking for revenge. He just wanted to feel normal again. But deep down, he knew nothing was going to be the same. An unexpected visitor. One evening, the doorbell rang at the Thompson house. Malik opened the door and froze. Standing there was the flight attendant, the same woman who had accused him. She looked different, not proud, not powerful, just tired. "Hi," she said quietly. "May I speak to your father?" Colonel Thompson came to the door. He looked at her, arms folded. She cleared her throat. "I came to apologize. I lost my job. I lost a lot. But mostly, I lost my dignity. And I was wrong." She turned to Malik. "I judged you, and I don't know why. But I did. I'm sorry." Malik didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he said softly, "You didn't see me. You only saw what you feared." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I see you now," she whispered. Then she left. A new kind of hero. That night, Malik sat in his room, reading messages online. One comment caught his eye. "You didn't raise your voice. You didn't fight. You stood tall." And that was louder than any scream. Malik smiled. He wasn't a soldier like his dad. He wasn't a politician or a lawyer. He was just a teenager who flew for the first time and refused to shrink. The interview offer. The next morning, a major news channel reached out. "We'd love to have you and your father on our show. People want to hear from you." Malik hesitated. "I'm not good with cameras," he said. His dad smiled. "You don't need to be, just be you." So they agreed. Lights, camera, truth. The studio was bright. The lights were hot. But Malik wasn't afraid. He sat beside his dad. The host smiled. "Malik, when you were wrongly accused, you stayed calm. Why?" Malik thought for a second. "Because if I had yelled, people would have seen a threat. Not a boy. Not a son." The room went quiet. The host nodded. "And what do you want people to learn?" Malik looked at the camera. "That every person, no matter their color, deserves to feel safe, even when they're just trying to go home." The interview went viral overnight. Clips from the show were shared everywhere. People called Malik the calm voice in the storm. Some said he was the teen who made the world listen. And they weren't just watching. They were feeling. Across the country. In schools, teachers played Malik's clip. In churches, pastors quoted his words. Even in places he had never heard of, people whispered his name with respect. That boy didn't just speak for himself. He spoke for every kid who's ever been judged too fast. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. But the world heard him loud and clear. Malik's inbox flooded with thousands of messages. "You gave me courage. My son saw your video. He stood taller today. You reminded me that dignity is powerful." Malik read each message with quiet amazement. "I was just trying to fly," he told his dad. His father smiled. Sometimes the smallest journeys shake the biggest rooms. A letter from the White House. One morning, a white envelope arrived. It had no return address, just a seal. Malik opened it carefully. Inside was a short note. "Dear Malik, I saw your interview. I saw your strength. Your voice mattered. And it still does. Keep speaking. The nation is listening." The president. Malik's eyes widened. He showed it to his dad, who gave a proud nod. You see, son, you didn't just survive. You inspired. The school assembly. Malik's school decided to hold a special assembly. Not to talk about grades. Not to hand out awards. But to let Malik speak. At first, he didn't want to. I'm not a speaker, he said. His best friend, Jamal, said, you already are. You just don't know it yet. So Malik stood in front of the whole school. He looked out at hundreds of students, some who had laughed at him, some who had doubted him, and some who were now looking up to him. He took a deep breath. His words on stage. I didn't ask to go viral, he said quietly. I didn't plan to be on TV. I just wanted to go on a trip with my dad. I wanted to see the world. He paused. But someone saw me as a problem, just for sitting in the wrong seat. They saw my skin before they saw my heart. A hush fell over the room. But my dad, he didn't yell. He didn't fight with fists. He stood. He spoke, and he made space for me to be seen. The room stayed silent. Malik added, there are kids in this room who feel invisible, who feel small. I just want to say, you're not. You don't have to be loud to be strong. Sometimes just being yourself is enough to change the world. The crowd stood up and clapped. Some had tears in their eyes. And Malik, he just smiled. The attendant speaks out. Days later, something unexpected happened. The former flight attendant gave her own interview. She didn't defend herself. She didn't blame anyone. She said, I made a horrible mistake. I didn't see Malik. I saw fear, and I acted out of it. Losing my job was hard, but seeing that boy speak with grace, that hurt more, in a good way. He's everything I wasn't. Calm, kind, and honest. I hope he keeps rising. People didn't cheer her, but they respected that she finally understood. Colleges reach out. Malik was only in high school, but big colleges started calling. One wrote, we see leadership in you, Malik, not just in words, but in the way you carry yourself. Another said, our campus would be lucky to have you. You're not just a student. You're a story that moves people. His father reminded him, education is power, son, but you already have the heart of a leader. Malik just nodded. I'm still just a kid, Dad. His dad smiled. A kid with the courage of a man. Family dinner turned special. One night, while eating dinner, Malik's little sister looked at him. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Malik, I told my friend you were my brother. She said you're a hero. Malik looked down, a little shy. I'm not a hero, he said softly. But his mom smiled. You didn't need a cape, she said. You just needed courage. A moment of reflection. Late that night, Malik stood by his window. He looked out at the stars. So much had changed in just a few weeks. He still remembered that day, the seat, the voice that accused, the fear in his chest. But he also remembered what came after. His dad's calm strength, the world's reaction, the messages from strangers. He whispered to himself, I'm not invisible. It had been a month since that flight, but Malik's life was no longer the same. People knew his name. People shared his story. And now, people wanted his help. The message from a mother. One morning, Malik checked his email. A new message caught his eye. The subject read, Please help my son. He opened it slowly. Dear Malik, my son is 12. He's smart, kind, and quiet. But last week, he was called names at school. He's been silent ever since. He won't eat. He won't smile. He saw your video. He asked me, is that boy real? I told him yes. He smiled for the first time in days. I just want to say thank you. You gave my little boy hope. Malik stared at the screen. Tears filled his eyes. He had never met the boy, but somehow their pain was the same. And now his story had given someone else the strength to stand. A call from the principal. Later that week, Malik's school principal called him into her office. She looked serious. He wondered if he was in trouble. But then she said, "We want to start something new, a student-led program, about respect, kindness, and standing up for others." Malik raised his eyebrows. "Me?" he asked. She nodded. "You've already started a movement. Now let's make it bigger. The club with no name." Malik didn't want a fancy title. He didn't want to be the boss. So when the first meeting happened in the school library, he sat in a circle, just like everyone else. He called it the No Name Club. "Because labels hurt," he told them. "Here, we don't care if you're loud or quiet, rich or poor, black, white, or anything else. We're just people, and every person matters." More students showed up each week. Some were shy. Some were angry. Some were still healing. But all of them felt safe. Malik listened, and he reminded them, "You are not alone." A visit to the airport. Then one day, Malik's father surprised him. They drove back to the same airport from that painful day. Malik looked confused. "Why are we here again?" His dad smiled. "There's someone who wants to meet you." They entered a private room inside the airport. A group of airline staff stood waiting. One man stepped forward. He wore a suit, but his voice was humble. "Malik, I'm the regional director of this airline. What happened to you was wrong. And it opened our eyes." He pointed to the team behind him. "This is our new diversity and sensitivity group, and we'd like you to speak to them." Back where it began, Malik looked around the room. This was the same airline, the same company, the same place where he had once felt small and humiliated, but now they were asking him to teach them. He stepped forward, his voice steady, his heart open. "You can check a bag. You can scan a boarding pass, but you can't scan a person's heart. So don't assume who someone is because of what they look like. Don't let fear guide your actions. Let fairness guide them." The room stayed silent. No one moved, but everyone felt changed. An unexpected gift. As they were leaving, the airline director handed Malik a small envelope. Inside was a lifetime flight pass. Anywhere, anytime, for free. "We want you to see the world," the director said. "You've earned more than just one seat." Malik looked at his dad. He remembered the day they were forced to leave. Now they were being invited back. This time, with honor. News travels again. The story went viral again. But this time, not because of what went wrong. This time, because of what went right. Teen who was kicked off flight now teaches airline staff. From pain to power. How one boy's quiet strength is changing lives. People watched. People learned. People talked. And Malik, he kept walking forward. A new dream. One night, as he sat with his dad, Malik said quietly, "I don't think I want to be a lawyer anymore." His dad looked surprised. "No." Malik smiled. "I want to be a teacher, or maybe a speaker. I want to help people feel seen." His dad nodded slowly. "You've already started. The spark of something bigger." Back at school, more clubs began to form in other schools. Principals emailed each other. "Let's create more no-name clubs." Malik was invited to help build the program for the whole district. He was just a teenager, but he had become something rare, a voice of truth in a noisy world. And the best part, he never shouted. He simply stood up and spoke from the heart. Malik sat quietly at gate 42. The airport buzzed around him, families rushing, announcements echoing, children laughing. But he wasn't nervous this time. He wasn't afraid. This time, he had been invited. The event invitation. A week earlier, Malik had received a letter. It wasn't an email. It wasn't a phone call. It was a real letter, with gold trim and official seal. Inside it said, "Dear Malik, we are hosting the Global Aviation Youth Summit. We've heard your story. We've seen your courage, and we'd be honored if you shared your voice with the world. You will fly as our special guest. First class. Window seat. No one will question you this time, because you belong, and you've changed more than you know." Malik couldn't believe it. He looked at his father. His father smiled, full of pride. "Looks like the world is listening, son." Boarding time. When they called his name, Malik stood up. He wasn't just boarding a plane. He was boarding a new chapter of his life. A flight attendant, kind, polite, respectful, walked over to him. She smiled. "Mr. Malik," she said softly, "we've been waiting for you." People in the terminal turned their heads. Some whispered, "That's the boy from the video." But no one laughed. No one doubted him. Not anymore. A different kind of seat. He walked into the first-class cabin. A soft leather seat waited for him, big, wide, and with his name on it. Yes, his name. Printed on a small card. Malik Johnson, guest of honor. He sat down slowly. He remembered the seat from that awful day. How it had felt like it didn't belong to him. How eyes had judged him. How a voice had thrown him off. But now, this seat was his. It was given with respect. And it was earned, not by power, but by character. An emotional announcement. As the plane prepared for takeoff, a voice came over the speaker. It was the captain. "Good morning, passengers. Welcome aboard. Today, we're honored to fly someone very special." Malik's eyes widened. The voice continued. "This young man stood tall when he was treated unfairly. He reminded us all of dignity, strength, and grace. And he taught the entire airline industry what real leadership looks like. Please join me in welcoming Malik Johnson." The cabin clapped. Some even stood and cheered. Malik felt his face grow warm. But he didn't hide. He smiled. And he nodded. Landing into the future. At the summit, hundreds of students from all over the world gathered. Leaders from airlines, governments, and schools filled the room. Malik walked onto the stage in a simple black suit. He didn't have a script. He didn't need one. He just told the truth. "I was once seen as a problem. Just because of my skin. Just because I sat in a seat someone didn't think I deserved. But that seat didn't matter. What mattered was how I responded. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just stood up, with respect. And now, I'm sitting in a better seat. A seat where my voice matters." The audience was silent. Then they rose. Not out of politeness, but out of respect. After the speech, a young girl approached him backstage. She was crying. She whispered, "I used to hide my voice, but not anymore. Because of you." Another boy walked over and said, "My sister saw your video. She started her own club." A teacher said, "You're teaching more than books ever could." And Malik, he just smiled. Because now, he wasn't just a boy who got thrown off a plane. He was a light, a movement, a living lesson in courage. The video of Malik's speech at the summit went viral. Within 24 hours, it was shared by news outlets, celebrities, schools, and civil rights groups. Millions saw the boy who had once been thrown off a flight just for sitting in the wrong seat, now standing tall and inspiring the world. But one group saw it differently. The airline that had wronged him. Back in the boardroom, in a tall glass building, far away from Malik's school, the airline executives sat in silence. A giant screen played Malik's words again. "I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just stood up, with respect." The CEO rubbed his forehead. He had watched the video 3 times. The marketing director spoke first. "We have to do something," she said. "This isn't just a story, it's a movement." The head of customer relations nodded. "This isn't about PR anymore. It's about what's right." A call to Malik's father. That evening, Malik's father received a call. It was from the airline's headquarters. "Sir, we know we can never erase what happened, but we want to make things right. Truly right. Not just for Malik, but for every kid who looks like him. Malik's father listened, arms folded. He didn't trust them yet. "We don't need a public show," he said. "We need real change." And the voice on the line said, "That's exactly what we want to talk about." A press conference like no other. A week later, the airline held a special press event. The room was full. Reporters, cameras, activists, lawyers, teenagers, and in the front row, Malik and his father. The CEO stepped onto the stage. He wasn't in a fancy suit. He wore something simple, and his face wasn't proud. It was humbled. He spoke into the mic. "We failed. We judged a young man based on the color of his skin, not the content of his heart. Malik deserved respect. Instead, we gave him suspicion. He gave us grace, and now, we give him our apology." The cameras flashed, but the CEO wasn't finished. "Starting today, we are launching the Malik Johnson Initiative. Free aviation training for youth from underrepresented communities. Mandatory bias training for all airline staff. A scholarship in Malik's name. And most importantly, a public commitment. No child, no matter their color, should ever feel unworthy of a seat." Malik's response. The reporters turned to Malik. They asked if he forgave the airline. Malik stood. He looked at his father, then at the CEO. Then he said, "I didn't ask for attention. I didn't want revenge. I wanted dignity. And now, maybe other kids like me won't have to fight just to feel human." He paused. "This apology means something, but it means more if it leads to action." The room was silent. Then claps. Then cheers. Change begins. Over the next few months, the changes were real. Malik's name appeared on scholarship forms. Young students flew on their first trips with pride. Flight attendants were retrained, with new lessons built from Malik's story. And Malik, he didn't chase fame. He went back to school, played basketball, did homework, but he also visited schools to speak. Not just about planes, but about respect, grace, and standing tall even when the world tries to push you down. A final letter. One day, Malik received a letter in the mail. It was from the flight attendant who had thrown him off the plane. He opened it slowly. Inside, in shaky handwriting, it read, "Dear Malik, I watched your speech. I cried. I was wrong. Not just that day, but in how I've seen people like you all my life. Your calm response taught me more than any training ever did. Thank you for showing me who you are. I'm truly sorry. LH." Malik folded the letter gently. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He just said to himself, maybe that's what change looks like. One heart at a time. Closing scene. A sky with no limits. On his next flight, Malik looked out the window. Clouds stretched wide. The sky looked endless. He whispered, "I was once just a boy with a seat. Now I'm a boy with a purpose." And somewhere, high above the clouds, a new chapter began.